we are rapidly hurtling towards a second wave of attacks against Iran. And it appears to me that this is inevitable and unavoidable. It is almost certainly going to happen. It was announced today by President Trump that if Iran does not come to the negotiating table and give up on basically everything, give up their nuclear centrifuges, give up their enriched uranium, give up their ability to enrich uranium, give up their longer range missiles, give up their support for the proxies, Trump is effectively demanding a complete and total surrender, or else Trump says we are going to war with Iran.
And this is exactly why I don't understand, because how can you want somebody to come and negotiate with you, but you want to take everything they have, which is not possible, you know? So I don't really understand where they want Iran to be in this situation, which is like, let's take an example. If I come to your house, that's basically what the USA is doing. Coming to somebody's house and demanding, okay, I'll take everything you have in your house and you can just keep the worthless stuff in your house. Nobody will agree to that. So, and they're doing this on purpose because they know that if they give Iran a chance, they will agree with the deal. So they just come in, have a crazy demand so that they have no choice but just go to war. So that's the strategy here. Just go to war. Give us everything, basically give us everything, or we're going to bomb you. Nothing else. Nobody will agree to that.
And that menu of options to strike Iran now consists in a much wider range of possibilities. They now say that the Trump administration is considering special operations raids on the ground. So we're not just talking about airstrikes this time. We're not just talking about bombing government buildings and missiles and nuclear sites. The Pentagon is now talking about American soldiers inside Iran physically dismantling Iranian infrastructure. And to understand how we got here, we do have to back it up a little bit. And we'll reiterate some of the things that I hope you already know about the whole situation. So, of course, Donald Trump was basically elected for this exact purpose. I said this in 2024. The reason that Trump won the election, the reason that Trump became so popular, they let him. You do understand this, right? Trump was allowed to become popular. He was allowed to win the election. They stood down whatever these forces are that conspired against him in 2016 and 2020. They stood down and they let him become successful. And this was telegraphed years in advance. It was telegraphed after October 7th. Because after Israel was attacked on that day, a number of powerful American Jews, maybe you could say a majority of American Jews in general, shifted to the right. Why? Because they saw the reality of what is happening on the ground in Israel, which is that there is a contingent of Palestinian Muslims that have a genocidal hatred for Israel. That's the perception. That's the narrative. On that day, this performance, which is October 7th, there was this theater, a stage play put on for world Jewry. And the moral of that story was Israelis are not safe. Jews are not safe. We have to stick together. We need to be cohesive. And Jews in America that day were mugged by reality. They realized the world is still a dangerous place for Jews. And feeling vulnerable, they became more right-wing, seeking security through militarism, through tribalism. What's more, they saw the American political left sympathize with the Palestinians. And they were alienated from the political left by this. They saw that the far left, the progressives, the radicals, immediately, almost immediately sympathized not just with the Palestinian cause, but with Hamas. And this alienated many Jews who would have considered themselves liberals or Democrats And so there was a shift rightward among all American Jews. I don't care how left-wing or liberal they were, they all shifted somewhat to the right after this day. Being very powerful in America, this had a knock-on effect. It made America more right-wing. If the liberal Jews running the media and academia and the lawyers and the donors and the ones in Silicon Valley and Wall Street, if they all became more right-wing that day, then they used their influence to make America more right-wing. America did not have an epiphany about wokeness. These people did. And so they stood down and they allowed Trump to win. Why? Because they knew that Trump was a vehicle for Israel's revenge. Whereas left-wing protesters and Democrats and liberals and the Biden administration were huffing and puffing all the way, trying to restrain Israel, criticizing Israel, trying to get them to stop their campaign. Powerful American Jews knew that if a Republican was elected to the White House and to the rest of the government, that they would allow Israel to take the gloves off and would actually supplement their efforts in a major way. So once you understand this, you realize that war with Iran in the Trump administration is a feature, not a bug. I know there are a lot of Trump supporters that believe that Trump's pro-Israel politics is a compartmentalized aspect of his program. They say that he's got lots of different policies, and some we like and some we don't like, and this idea that he wants to support a war with Iran, well, that's just one among other policies. And they also have this idea that they have this relationship with the president, that the president is listening to them, reading their tweets, receptive to their outrage, their emotions. And there was this idea among very naive and stupid people that might run certain Twitter accounts like AF Post, among other people like Andrew Torba, who might be named Mike Cernovich. And these naive and foolish and stupid people thought that we could try to support the good and criticize the bad, that we could sort of work with this arrangement. They thought that those pro-Israel politics were just sort of part of the deal, and maybe they could be mitigated in some way through pressure on social media. Well, I hate to tell you this, but that is absolutely not how it works. Trump was given hundreds of millions of dollars by donors with the understanding that the only way that he could unlock that money is if he gave them assurances that he would go to war with Iran. He is not elected and going to war. He was elected to go to war. You understand the difference? This is why we have a Trump administration. Actually, it's the complete opposite. The reason he is elected is to go to war with Iran, and all of the other things are ancillary. The trade war, the deportations, all the rest of it, those are the stocking stuffers. Those are the bonuses. War with Iran is the big ticket item that got him into the White House in the first place, and that's why he's there. He is a Trojan horse, and the purpose of the horse is not to give a gift to the city and the base. The purpose of the horse is to get the soldiers inside the city walls where they need to be. The purpose is to get Mike Waltz in the National Security Council. The purpose is to get all of these Zionists inside the Pentagon, inside the State Department, so that they can carry out their mission, which has been the case for a long time. And so as quickly as Trump was elected, this started. Netanyahu began visiting the White House demanding a war with Iran. Trump's own personnel started pushing for a war with Iran. Trump attempted to negotiate with Iran because I think that in his heart of hearts, Trump is against a war ideologically, but ultimately this was in vain because the table had already been set. Long ago, the Israelis and the Zionists and the Jews poisoned Trump's relationship personally with the nation of Iran.
I really don't think like he said, I don't think Trump is really like want to go to war, but I think he's not really in control of the presidency, which is he has no choice but to just go to war, do everything the Israel tells him, because I don't think Trump is in control of the White House. To be honest, I don't, because every time Netanyahu comes to the White House, Trump just do like 360 for no reason. Like he said, no war. Now we are going to war. Deport criminals. Now they are deporting basically everybody and everywhere. Release the Epstein's files. Nope. So I don't know.
By pushing him to assassinate Soleimani, by pushing him to rip up the Iran nuclear deal, by branding the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist group. They had already poisoned the well. They had alienated this particular president from Iran. They knew that a rapprochement would be impossible. They knew that diplomacy would be impossible because the seeds of distrust had been sowed a long time ago. And their insurance policy was they fabricated this myth that Iran was trying to assassinate Trump. Remember that? During the election, the Israel-infiltrated FBI, the Israel-infiltrated Pentagon, put out false intelligence that said that Iran was trying to kill Trump. And so, if the well was already not sufficiently poisoned by the behavior of the first Trump administration, surely as Trump was propelled into the nomination and then the White House a third time, second or third time, respectively, that little assassination plot, that little piece of propaganda, that would do the trick. That would tip it in and seal the deal. And so Trump attempted to negotiate with Iran, attempted to pick up where Biden left off and normalize relations with Iran. But
I think he had to like try and negotiate with Iran, but the truth is so that the public, at least he can say in the public that, okay, I tried to negotiate with Iran, which is exactly what he's doing now. I tried to negotiate with them, but they didn't accept to the demands that Trump is demanding from them. So what does he have left to do? Go to war.
Damage was already done, and we were already on a collision course with this country. Throughout the first half of the last year, the Israelis propagandized the world about an imminent Iranian nuclear capability. Eventually, they launched their preemptive attack. They could not defend themselves, and they knew they couldn't. And that is how they were able to draw the United States into the conflict. And we bombed Iran's nuclear program.
Always.
Now, again, a lot of Trump fans and Trump shills saw that first strike on Iran, and they lied to themselves, and they coped. And they said, hey, trust the plan. They said this is five-dimensional chess. Once the whole thing was over, they wiped their brow, they breathed a sigh of relief, and they said, see, Trump isn't a neocon. He just bombed Iran once, and now it's over. Now it's all finished. They said, actually, it was genius. It was ideal. They said Trump was able to disable Iran's nuclear hedge. He was able to do it without committing us into a war. It was a clean, effective operation. And now we don't have to go to war with Iran. We've neutralized their program, and we could focus our attention elsewhere. That's what they all told themselves, and that was the cope. But here was the problem with that line of thinking, okay? Iran's nuclear problem was never the problem, ever. The real problem at the heart of this antagonism between Israel and Iran is that Israel cannot tolerate the existence of a large, powerful Islamist state that does not recognize Israel. That is the fundamental problem. As long as Iran is Islamist, as long as it is powerful enough to check Israel's hegemony, as long as it influences other Islamist groups in the Middle East that challenges Israel's hegemony in the region, and as long as they will not normalize those relations, then Israel wants this country destroyed. That is Israel's mortal enemy. just as it was Bashar al-Assad before that and Saddam Hussein before that. So Israel wants to utterly annihilate Iran. It is for this reason that Iran has built up a nuclear hedge. That was actually the reaction. The first move is that the United States and Israel supported both sides in the Iran-Iraq war. The United States and Israel collaborated to overthrow Saddam Hussein. The United States and Israel collaborated to overthrow Bashar al-Assad. The reaction to this policy, the reaction to this grand strategy was to create a nuclear hedge. And this, unfortunately, puts Iran between a rock and a hard place. No pun intended. If they don't have a nuclear hedge, they are vulnerable. If they do have one, then that creates a pretext for Israel to convince the United States to go to war with them. But understand, the U.S. interest in Iran is limited. In Israel, it is unlimited. Israel wants Iran to be wiped out. Therefore, Iran has a nuclear hedge. As long as Iran has a nuclear hedge, we need to ensure that they do not become a nuclear-armed state. That's a limited objective. We don't necessarily mind in itself that they have allies in Iraq, that they have allies in Syria or in Lebanon or Yemen, not by itself. We don't necessarily have a problem that Iran has missile systems, not in itself. We do have a problem that Iran has nuclear centrifuges. Because as the global hegemon, one of our real grand strategy objectives is to prevent the proliferation of WMDs. Because that is the only way that a revisionist middle power could ever threaten us. Iran cannot, would not ever threaten us with conventional capabilities. But any country with a limited nuclear, biological, or chemical arsenal could theoretically threaten the United States, either on our homeland through terrorism, or if we needed to intervene in some region by having an asymmetrical deterrent against U.S. intervention. So understand that is how the table is set. Israel wants to destroy Iran. So Iran has a nuclear hedge. That nuclear hedge invites intense U.S. scrutiny. What does this have to do with the war last year? Well, Israel, and even Trump himself, the United States has been driven into a confrontation with Iran over the nuclear program. That has been the pretext. That has been the bait. In the first term, we were told that we have to rip up the nuclear deal because that will not sufficiently constrain Iran from getting a bomb. We were told that we had to kill Soleimani and do these things because Iran is nuclearizing and they're this anti-American nation seeking a nuclear bomb. Last year, the pretext for Israel's preemptive strike was that they had a nuke. And what was the U.S. strike on Iran? What was Midnight Hammer? The U.S. strike on Iran last year was a limited strike on Iran's nuclear centrifuges. But understand it in terms of the bigger picture. From our perspective, American Trump supporters were saying, well, the day is saved. We took out their nukes, and now they no longer pose a threat. Because again, that's our limited objective. That is the narrow way in which we find ourselves at odds intrinsically with Iran. And so with the nuclear hedge off the table, people say we no longer need to engage Iran, confront Iran. There's no longer a reason to engage Iran with hostilities. It's over because their nuclear program could not easily be reconstituted. So from our perspective, people said the day is saved, the issue is resolved, and now we're all going to live happily ever after. But again, that fundamentally misunderstands that there are three parties. There are three variables in this equation. What we did in June could be perceived one way, as a one-and-done strike that eliminated the one thing we were worried about. But think about it from Israel's perspective. If Israel's goal is to topple Iran, taking out their nuclear program is only the first step. The nuclear program is what protects Iran. If Iran is engaged in a once and for all battle, an existential battle for its existence, then Iran could always pull that trigger. That's their dead man switch, so to speak. They get a nuclear bomb and then they become a porcupine. If they find themselves up against the wall, the US and Israel breathing down their neck, ready to slit their throat, Iran can race towards a bomb and deter any.
The only way to protect yourself, any country to protect yourself, is to try and build a nuke. Have a nuclear program. That's the only way you can protect yourself, because if you have resources, the United States can just come in behalf of Israel, behalf of anybody, not anybody, but behalf of Israel, to come in inside, bomb you, take whatever they want, and then just leave. That's why they don't disturb people like countries with nukes. North Korea, he's doing all kind of stuff there, but you can't touch him because he have nukes, he have weapons. So you just leave them alone. If you want to protect your country, all you gotta do is build nukes. Simple as that. Anyway, if you like the video, comment down below, like the video, share it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.